I'd first of all like to thank Mr. Graham and his team for allowing me this opportunity to be here tonight to share with you the joy of Jesus Christ in my life. 2 weeks ago, my dad passed away, and it was a unique relationship that we had. I read a lot of the articles that people sent to me about my dad that was in the sports pages throughout the United States, and what they talked about was a man of 20 years ago. But what they failed to mention was the man of the last few years. A year and a half ago, my dad made a commitment to Jesus Christ. He became a born-again believer. He wasn't a spiritual giant, but he did something, and God used him to teach me about faith over the last 5 months, because I was with him every day and every night, doing 48-hour stretches without any sleep, not only helping him minister to his physical needs, but also, I thought, to his spiritual needs. But what God showed me was that he was using my father to teach me about faith. Because it's one thing to talk about battle, but it's another thing to do battle. And my dad lived his faith. He suffered a great deal, and yet he never wavered. I saw nurses go out of his room at the hospital with tears in their eyes because with all the drugs he was on, he would spill a little cup of tea and he would apologize. But he knew Jesus Christ, and he couldn't wait to meet him. He died with peace. I saw his last breath. And the only reason I'm standing here tonight is because I have that same joy of Jesus Christ. It was not always like that, because when I was 7 years old, my dad sat me down and he said, "Pete, if you'll listen to me, you might be able to get a scholarship in basketball because we can't pay your way. And maybe you not only get a scholarship, but maybe you'll go to the pro level and you'll play on a team that wins a world championship. And you'll make $1 million playing basketball. And they'll give you a big diamond ring and it'll have your name on it and say world champions." And to a 7-year-old, my eyes lit up. And I said, "Dad, that's what I want." He said, "If you let me teach you, you just commit. You dedicate your life to basketball, and that's all you have to do. And you'll live happily the rest of your lives." And that's what I did. I became a human basketball. I was a basketball android. I believed in God when I was a young boy, but the God I believed in was a heavenly Santa Claus, someone who would take care of my needs. He would get me things, or when I was in trouble, he would get me out of it. I knew of no personal relationship, nor did I care, because my commitment was to basketball, one of the first idols and gods in my life. When I was 14 and a half years old, a friend of mine came to me, and I grew up in Clemson, South Carolina, and said, "Have you ever had a beer, Pete?" And I said, "No, I haven't. I don't care to have one because my dad said if I ever drank one, he would shoot me." And I said, "I don't want to die just yet because I've got to play pro basketball." He said, and he kept on, and finally, through what they call peer pressure today, I said, "Okay." I remember going on the steps of the Methodist Church at 9:30 p.m. on a Sunday night. And I remember popping open that can. I remember smelling it. And he said, "Doesn't it smell good?" I said, "Yes, it does." And I remember taking that first sip. And I'm here to tell you tonight, all you young people that are here and anybody else who has any kind of a drug problem, that first sip nearly destroyed my life. And the only reason I'm standing here tonight is because of the grace and mercy of God. I would not be here tonight because he overruled in my life. But I do know this, that peer pressure is simply a choice. That's all it was in my life. It's a choice. There was never a gun placed next to the alcohol. Never in my whole life. It started as a toehold and came out as a stronghold. When I was 19 years old, I went out to the Campus Crusade for Christ to put on a Showtime clinic. I didn't know anything else, just to go out there and do my clinic. I'd done it all around the world, my dad and I. I took a friend with me, and for 3 days I heard who Jesus Christ was. And for 3 days I rejected him. On the third night, Mr. Bill Bright, founder of Campus Crusade, gave a message like Mr. Graham gives, and many young people came forward. And my friend, who was just like me, we partied all the way out, and we had a good time. We had all the pleasure we wanted. He went forward with tears in his eyes, and I said, "What's wrong with you? You can't follow this. I've seen all the hypocrites. I don't want any part of this." Because I had my goals set, and I had to attain my goals. I didn't have time for Christ. And I went back out in the wilderness. I went back out there for 16 years. And I did everything I did in college, and I became All-American. And I got all the trophies, and all the awards was on all the magazine covers. I have a trophy 6'5" and 1/4 inches tall, the same height as I am. It's still in the attic from 15 years ago, collecting dust, because that's what trophies do. They collect dust. I signed the largest contract in the history of sports in 1970. I went to my dad. I said, "Dad, I hope you're proud," because my dad was always my hero. I said, "I've got it. I've signed $1 million contract. I've made it to the pros." Now all I got left is the ring. And when I get the ring, I'll be able to sit by the pool, twinkle my toes in the water, and sit back with my drink and live happily ever after. That's what I thought. But it just didn't turn out that way. In 1980, I quit basketball. I was despondent. I didn't know what to do. It was out of bitterness, and I was immature. And I became a recluse in my house in Metairie, Louisiana. And I tried to be Father of the Year. I said, now I'll throw all of my energies into my son. That's where I'll get my joy. That's where I'll get my peace. But it didn't work out. It didn't last. And for 2 years, I divorced myself from basketball, stayed in the house, used to contemplate suicide, taking my Porsche out, driving 140 miles an hour across the bridge and going off. I'm glad I never did that. But in 1982, I went to bed one night. It was late night, and I was watching television. It was like any other night, and I just went to bed. And as I laid in the bed, things started coming up in my mind, and I could not sleep. And the things that were coming up in my mind, I knew what they were. It was called sin. I knew the difference between right and wrong, and I always had a heavy conscience whenever I did something morally wrong. It was sin that came, and it would not leave me alone. Everything I'd ever done, all my rebellion against God, all my rebellion against my parents, the people I loved, the people I hated. I hated people. I had bitterness against people. It was driving me crazy. I couldn't get it out of my mind. I remember crying out in my spirit. I said, oh, God, you're going to have to save me. I can't take this life anymore. I've had it with what they say makes you happy. I've had it with what they say will make your life just so good. And I remember at that point, with tears in my eyes, the Lord spoke to me. He said, be strong and lift thine own heart. I'll never forget it. I'll never deny it. It reverberated through my room. I was in shock. I sat up in my bed. I was not asleep. I woke my wife up. She was in a deep sleep. I said, Jackie, did you hear that? Did you hear what God said to me? Well, Jackie just didn't hear. She said, I didn't hear anything, Pete, and laid her head back down. But I remember rolling off the bed, and I remember I said, God, I know you're there, and I want my life to change. And I remember back to when I was 19, when I was at that campus crusade, and I said, come into my life, forgive my sin, change me like you want me to. Since that day, my life has changed so dramatically. It's been almost 4.5 years. I've never known the joy I have tonight. I know what faith is. Faith is a testing. Faith is a preparation ground. That's why we are here. But joy is trusting. That's what I found out. That's what it's all about. I want all of you to know this tonight about Peter Maravich. You may never have heard of me. It makes no difference. I'm just one person on this earth, saved by the grace of God through faith in Jesus Christ. And I want you to know this, that the change that came into my life was Jesus Christ. It was not winning. I won all my life. I won every trophy and award and everything you can think of. But every time I won something, I wanted something more. I had to win again. It wasn't money, because money will buy you everything but happiness. It'll pay your fare to every place but heaven. Material things, I've driven everything some of you strive for, from Rolls Royces to BMWs to Mercedes to Porsches. It wasn't religion, because in the name of religion, Jesus Christ was placed upon that cross. And the purest thing about Christianity is the fact that it's your choice. You can't work, you can't earn. I knew that. And I understood it now. And I want you to know this. The last thing I'd like to say is this. Next week, I'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'll get that big ring. In fact, it's a bigger ring than I would have got for the championship. But I'll tell you something about all awards. They all pale to the glory of Christ and what he's done in my life. It's amazing what he has done in my life. I wouldn't trade my position. I wouldn't trade my position in Christ for 1,000 NBA championships, for 1,000 Hall of Fame rings, or for $100 billion. There's nothing like the joy of Jesus Christ in your life. Thank you very much.